Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them to Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com, here today with my guest, Jim Stengel. Today's topic, a top marketer riffs on what it takes to succeed as a CMO today. Now, Jim spent 25 years at P&G, the final 7 years as the global marketing officer, where he oversaw an $8 billion with a B dollar budget. After that, he founded his own consulting company, wrote a book titled Unleashing the Innovators, became an adjunct professor at UCLA and Northwestern, and started a podcast called the CMO Podcast. Jim, we're all waiting for you to accomplish something we can be proud of. So I'm glad you're on the show. Full disclosure, I've known Jim for a number of years, as we are both Procter & Gamble alums and original members of the Marketing 50. And I'm really excited to have him on the show. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Mike. Hey, the global reunion of P&G, happened 2 weeks ago. Did you go?
I missed that. Sorry. I heard It was great, though. So.
Yeah, it was in DC. I didn't go either. It was I was actually given the McElroy Award at that event. The deal was you had to show up and give a speech. And I was very honored. And Ed Tazia, who organizes this whole thing, I accepted. I booked it on my calendar. Then my daughter decided to get married that weekend. So I called Ed and I said, Ed, I gotta go to my daughter's wedding. And he was like, that's the only excuse for you not showing up. So we had a beautiful wedding a few weeks ago, and I made a video of it, and it all went well.
Well, congratulations. At last, someone has recognized your accomplishments.
Thank you, Mike.
And congrats on the wedding. So, hey, Jim, let's start. Give us an overview of the dominant themes you are seeing out there today in the marketing landscape.
You haven't lost your P&G style there, Mike. You're asking do I have to limit this to one page or three bullet points?
One page, 3 bullet points.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, the first one, I grabbed this coming out of the Cannes Festival this year, which is a good barometer for what's on people's mind. And it's the biggest gathering of marketing people in the world. And a lot of people are just saying, we are all in the attention game. And so it's so hard to get engagement. There's so many distractions. The generations that are emerging as consumers are obviously distracted by a lot of things. So I think we just have to you have to think about yourself in the entertainment and attention game. And if you're not able to get someone's attention, you can't even start. We used to call it awareness in the old days, I guess. But now I think attention is a much stronger word. And you don't have to look any farther than Barbie this summer to see, this is a very old brand that has had tough times and good times. And that movie put them at the center of popular culture. And look what it's done for their stock price, their brand, their sales, and their future partnerships. It's kind of established a platform for that brand that can go so many places. So attention and entertainment, I think, is a big theme. I'd say the second one, and closely related, is creativity as a capability. We don't talk about that enough. It's a big word like innovation, like culture. But if you're not able to harness creativity and attract creative people to your company and in your partnerships, good luck in any marketplace, but especially today's. And, you don't have to look further than TikTok on that, right? Right. They are a culture that, however your opinion is of them, they are a culture that rewards creativity, looks for creativity, and works with creative people extremely well.
And to your point, they also, that is entertainment too.
Totally.
Yeah,
totally. And I think the third one I would underscore, and maybe I'll take another one after this, is purpose, right? And I know we're going to talk about that. I think it's a word we've been wrestling with for decades. I think it's still misunderstood. A strong purpose on a brand is about growing the brand and making an impact on people's lives. Companies and brands who still do that do better in the market, attract more customers, attract better employees. So I think it's still, and I think Microsoft is a beautiful example of that. And look at that company; they have an incredible leadership team, an incredible leader, an incredible sense of purpose in the world, and you can see what's happening to their culture and to their sales. And then the last one, I will borrow a quote from my podcast show from one of the CMOs I interviewed. I think it was the Wendy's CMO, but I love this quote. He said, CMO is 90% chief, 10% marketing. 90% chief, 10% marketing. So when you're a CMO, you have to think about yourself as part of the C-suite, part of the leadership of the company, a representative of the company, a peer of the other functions. And if you have that mentality and you seek to make a difference as a corporation, leveraging your skills, your talents, and your organization, you work well with other functions, you will have a good career. If you don't do that, you will have one stint as a CMO.
So I want to, in a little bit, I want to drill down on the creativity versus efficiency story that I see in marketing. I love the 90-10% thing. Let's talk about purpose a little bit. And you've written a lot about it. Why don't you describe purpose for our listeners and talk about what it actually means and how it shows up?
Well, the first point I would make about it, purpose is when it's not linked to your business and your business outcomes and your business strategy, it's not going to work. It's not social marketing. It's not cause marketing. It's not philanthropy. It's not doing well. It can inspire all of that, and it usually does. But I get frustrated at conferences when there's a purpose speech and the person gets up there and talks about basically cause marketing or social good. Those are all fine and good things that can help a brand, but purpose has to be front and center and rooted in your business strategy and solving business problems that you have as an organization. So that's the first point I would make. The way I shortcut it after establishing that principle is it's about the impact you are seeking to make in the lives of the people you serve or you seek to serve. It's as simple as that. If you can have a higher impact on their life, make a bigger difference in their life through your products and services in a way that's relevant for your category, you will, if you execute well and consistently over time, you will beat your competition.
But you are drawing a distinction here, though, between this purpose of altruistic good or helping society and the purpose of the brand or the product or service doing something important for the consumer in their day-to-day or week-to-week life, right? That's because I think it's important for you to draw this out a little bit for our listeners and put the fine point on what you mean by what this does for the end user in terms of purpose. And give us a good example if you can.
I think we get wrapped up sometimes in, and this, I think especially in tech, what are the features? What are the benefits of the product? We get very feature driven. We get very functional. We get very sort of right brain. It becomes a game of, do I have more features than my competition? P&G at its worst was very functional, very purpose, or very product and product benefit oriented. That's all fine. I mean, you have to have fabulous products if you're going to be purpose oriented, but it's about thinking about the customer's life holistically and the role you play in it. And can you bring a little bit of ease or simplicity or speed or joy to that person's life in a way that's natural for your category? So it kind of lifts it up. It asks a bigger question about if we're in the baby care business or the software business or the auto business, what role do we have in helping that person live their life better, simpler, reaching more potential? And I think the companies that ask those questions and are relentless about that, their innovation is better, their engagement with their employees is better, and their outcomes with customers are better. So I think that's what it's about, Mike. And the head of marketing for Unilever's personal care business, which includes, of course, Dove. This guy named Samir Singh. I had him on my show, I don't know, a few months ago. I just recommend your listeners to listen to him. He speaks about as well on purpose as anyone I've ever heard. And he really does talk about purpose with a small p, not a big P. Yeah. And when you're in the CPG business, it's about daily life, right?
Yeah.
So what little things can you do to help people in their daily life? And the sum of that equals something pretty important. But I love how he makes a distinguish. He says, when you have the small P right, sometimes it leads to big P.
I agree with this.
But get the small P right.
Focusing on the big P, like you're going to change the world because you're selling mayonnaise or diapers or something. Yeah, maybe you will. But in the end, if you can make me have a great parenting experience because changing the diaper is really easy and it's not that expensive, or it's really simple and it's convenient, that is worth a lot to me as a consumer. And I think that's the purpose we're talking about versus, we're trying to solve some of the massive world problems
and Mike, the answer is always in your organization.
Yeah.
If you really go out and talk to your employees, your associates about, are we doing enough to help our customers? I mean, just a simple question. What more can we do? There's always more. There's always innovation. There's always ideas. So I think it's always the answer to, is my purpose working, or do I need a purpose, or do I need a higher purpose? The answer is always in your team. So I think that people don't often enough go back to the idea of the brand when it was founded. Every founder has an idea that inspired them to commit their life to that. And there's always interesting stories and inspiration and ideas and thoughts in going back to the beginning.
I think that is a good way to wrap on purpose. I want to move over into, you talked earlier about creativity and the need for creativity. And I want to, this is kind of a long question. So if you're in consumer goods, you're kind of in, there's a belief in the brand, there's a belief in the creativity, there's a belief in the long term. And often, the marketer is in the driving function there. When you leave consumer goods, a lot of times it's a whole new ball game where people see marketing completely through different lenses. And a lot of times there is not that belief in the creativity, not that belief in the long-term marketing tools. Tell us, how folks can make that work if they're not in CPG when they make the jump over to a new industry.
Well, I think it's changing, Mike. I look at, whether it's Mel Selker at LinkedIn, or Carrie at Train Technologies, or Chris, who just left Microsoft. I think marketing in non-CPG is getting elevated. I think people are getting they have a seat at the table. They're expected to be an active member of the leadership group. But I guess the short answer to your question is when you flip out of CPG or a category where marketing is really valued and into another category, I would say understand what drives the business, how you make money, what's the business model, what are others' opinions of the impact that you could potentially make on the outcomes of the company. And every time I've changed jobs, and people that I work with who have changed jobs, if you go and interview your colleagues at your level around the company, whether or not they're in product supply, R&D, finance, sales, HR, what are their opinions about the success of the company? What are their opinions about the impact and value of marketing? What would they do if they were you? If you do those interviews sincerely and synthesize that, you will have your agenda. And it will be important to the enterprise.
I agree with that. I think one of the things I would also recommend is if you can do that in the interview process, you will learn if the job
it's even better.
It's a lot better, because you will learn if there's a realistic expectation of marketing, and if they're really to the point about purpose and the consumer really having the final vote on whether you're succeeding or not. You will learn whether or not the company sees the marketing space the right way or not.
The other add-on I would give to that, Mike, I think why CPG marketers have historically been successful when they leave in other categories generally is they do bring their skills that they learned to a new space.
Yeah.
So, and the skills are if you think about why P&G is almost 200 years old, they're crazy about the consumer, they call it, understanding the consumer, measuring their impact on consumers' lives. And they're really, really, really strong about developing leaders, right? So bring the skills on customer insights, consumer closeness. Good marketers or strategists bring those skills, and good marketers elicit a high level of creativity and innovation from their teams. So if you go into a new category and you're consumer obsessed, you understand how to unleash creativity, and you're a great strategist, you will succeed.
I agree with this. I also want to highlight, you mentioned math and measures. And I think one of the things that is very important, if you're leaving CPG, where there's almost always a slew of measures that everyone understands, when you get to the new place, if they don't have the marketplace and marketing measures, you have to put them in, or they will give them to you, and they will often be wrong.
Yeah.
One of the things we talk about on the show a lot is sales overnight, brand over time.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge that some marketers have, and I've experienced this personally in places like PE or private equity or venture capital, where the long term isn't viewed as that long. And what's your recommendation for marketers in that kind of space, either on the way in or if they find themselves in that job where the long term isn't that long? How do you recommend they manage that kind of job?
I did an article in the Harvard Business Review this spring in the May-June edition with a professor at Wharton and a colleague of mine in a company where I'm on the board. And it was really all about this brand marketing versus performance marketing tension. Right. And what we found in the research we did and the point of view we took in the story is there should not be a tension. Every brand marketing, by the way, can drive sales overnight. And really great performance marketing can grow a brand. And the biggest issue we have in companies that see them in different spaces in the organization is they don't work together, they don't share a common vision, and they don't share KPIs, key performance indicators. So if the performance marketers are measured on their brand and brand marketers are measured on sales, together, they will work together, the work will be coherent, and the entire brand will lift. And that's what we found in our research. So for those listeners who's quote performance marketers, I don't even love these words, but they are what they are. Performance marketers have the same KPIs as the brand marketers and vice versa. You will see different kind of outcomes.
Look, I've always thought also, if you have to pay off it too, you can't just give the measure, you have to pay. So, or what happens is everyone is taking money from the other pile based on their metric. Hey, let's talk about innovation a little bit in the face of what is, this revaluation, particularly of a lot of the tech and the startup companies. Because you've talked and you think a lot about innovation, and then you have this AI thing sitting on top of innovation. Talk about innovation, marketing, AI. How should people be thinking about it going forward in what the marketplace is today and going into the next year?
Well, the marketplace in all times values innovation, right? So if you walk away from that, even in tough times, you are mortgaging your future. And we have no shortage of cases of companies that have done that well and those that have not. AI, if you're not using it personally, start.
Right.
And if your company doesn't at least have I looked at some recent data about number of companies who are experimenting with AI. I mean, it's very high, as you would expect, 85%. The ones that see it as fundamental to the strategy, about half the companies surveyed say this. But the learning I've had in using it myself and with the people that I associate with is, you need to link it to your business strategy. And so and then start testing things. So if you feel like it can help you write software better, then start using it. If you think it can help you build better architectural designs for gardens, if that's your business, start doing it. If it can help you synthesize data better and write summaries, which is how I'm using it, get on with it. If it helps you start speeches, get on with it. So, but I think in the creativity communication field, it's already having a large impact. In customer service, it's already having a large impact. I think in data analysis and benchmarking, it's having a big impact. So, and certainly we did a workshop on this at the Cannes Festival this year with about 60 marketers, and they all had ideas. They were all experimenting. They were all learning from each other. So I guess the other point I'd say, Mike, is understand what people are doing outside your category. That's the benefit of organizations like the Marketing 50, the ANA, the Cannes Festival. Get out there and ask other people what they're doing, what's working, what's not.
Get knowledge, get practice, but also don't throw your whole strategy over to something you don't fully have.
No, that's correct.
We've had a couple AI specialists on the show, and they basically say, look, first at efficiency gains, later at revenue generation. And we had one futurist say, it's great for tasks that aren't super important right now, but there's a lot of those tasks. And so you can outsource it to that. He also compared AI to like having 1 million cocky 16-year-old interns working for you who will produce a lot of stuff, but none of it will be at that creative super height, I think, and innovative height you were talking about earlier. I want to shift over to business schools in particular, college and business schools. You're a professor and you've written a lot. Are business schools teaching the right thing for future business leaders and marketers now? Because there's some people that say they're behind the curve a little bit.
I think it's mixed, Mike. I think it's highly variable. I think it's very dependent on the professor, of course. It always has been, I guess. But it's a very, the business model of business schools is very dispersed, right?
Right.
Really, the faculty are pursuing many times their own agendas. It's very hard to get a coherent agenda as a dean at any business school. So what I think some professors are making an enormous impact on the students, and some way less so. I think what's missing in a lot of the curriculum are the softer skills. All these people are going to leave, and most of them have had jobs before, but they're going to walk into jobs where the internal politics, the interpersonal dynamics are what's going to make or break their career. And if they don't understand how to navigate that, so I think it is the softer skills of succeeding in a complex organization. I think it's communication skills. Right? No matter how good you are, if you cannot communicate in a simple, straightforward, and inspiring way, good luck as you try to advance your career. And I do think this idea of 90% chief, 10% marketing, all the great CMOs of the world, you know this, they're great team leaders. They're about their teams. They see their success as their team's success. And I don't think there's enough pragmatic education on best practices in those areas. So I think it's the softer skills. And if your next question will probably be what's really missing. And
that's
I think
a great question, Jim. I think you should answer that.
Right. I think I've done a lot of thinking about this and a little bit of writing. Nothing that I've put out there in the world in a big way. But I've been doing a podcast as you're doing, and you're doing it weekly, which is amazing. I've been doing it for 5 years and interviewing the same kind of people you're interviewing. And I ask a lot of those people, what's the most important characteristic of a successful CMO? And the most frequent answer to that question is curiosity. And I mean, Cannes last year, I had Ted Sarandos at Netflix in my class. He said curiosity. I had the Unilever CMO in the class, curiosity. And start to unpack that. What does that mean? How do you be a curious person? Can you train curiosity? What's good curiosity and lack of curiosity? And how do people who are curious spend their time? How do they lead their teams? And so I've done some work on how to sharpen your saw, improve your skills in being curious. And you know what happens with that? It's actually very fun.
It is.
It's very kind of rewarding as a human being. It does change how you spend your time. But I do think it is a skill. It can be taught, it can be learned, and it can be applied and can be improved. And I would like to see business schools tackle that in a bigger way. And I've done a bit of teaching on that myself, and it leads to really interesting places.
I think this is a really important point because you see some companies will elevate a CMO based on a bunch of technical box checks. A lot of those CMOs are going to fail because they have not managed all the functions or all the things that they're going to run into. And if they just try and math base that like their historical approach, they won't get it right. So I think that's an important thing. Hey, Jim, there's been a ton of change in media and the agency business. Lot of things going on. Where's this all headed?
Well, I think, if you want creativity and you want to be a curious person, partnerships are going to be important. And they still are important. Obviously the big holding companies are going through adjustments and replatforming and restructuring, a lot of consolidations happening, as you know. But if you go to most successful brands and you ask them who are the most important people driving those brands, obviously they're going to talk about people inside the company, but they're also going to talk about partnerships. And they might be content partnerships. They might be, in some cases, celebrity partnerships. Right. They will be partnerships with a variety of outside people, companies who are really good at what the company is not good at. And so I think the world in the future possibly will be even more important to have strong partnerships outside your firm. But I think those are shifting, and those will continue to shift based on what companies need. The most important question, or one of the most important questions we need to ask as senior marketers: what do I want to be great at inside? It's not a new question. And what will I not be great on inside that I want to outsource or find partners for? And I think, companies like P&G have been pretty good at that over time.
Yeah.
And they tend to value their outside partners, and they tend to ask them to bring everything to the table in what they are good at. And when you have that dynamic happening and you set the right briefs, the right goals, the right ambitions, you get people who are different from you, who bring different things to the table than you do. And that's where success is. And I think that's perhaps even more the world we're walking into than it has been in the past.
And as more and more issues, particularly in technology, emerge, they can go a lot deeper on those issues.
Correct.
And you can hire all this experience. We have a whole show on vendor management talking about this, which is if you try and do everything, you're going to be doomed. So you got to get really good at vendor management and picking vendors, and then partnerships. Hey, Jim, there's a ton of questions I could ask you. So maybe you'll come back on the show sometime in the future.
Anytime, Mike.
Thank you. So let's finish. It's a two-part question. You can take both parts or either one, but you have to take at least one. Practical advice or funniest story you would like to share with our listeners.
I love it. I'll do both. Hey, right. And the practical advice, gosh, I'm gonna borrow from Antonio Lucio here, who's a friend of mine. He's been like you, an amazing CMO in many companies over his career. He did a remarkable video when he left Meta. I recommend everyone find it and watch it. And I think there are a lot of lessons in that video, but two of them resonated with me. And the first one is take care of yourself, right? Watch your physical health, your mental health. These jobs are hard. They're demanding. I mean, when I came in as CMO at P&G, my CEO at the time, A.G. Lafley, looked at me and said, don't try to outrun this job. It'll kill you. It'll kill you. And then, so take care of yourself and be deliberate about that, intentional. Don't get sucked up. It will. And Antonio talks about mental health, depression, heart attack. He's had some rough times because he didn't make that a priority. And then I think a second piece of advice he has in that video, which I think is remarkable, and I agree. He said, I was always good at developing my mentors and network and sponsors inside my company. I wasn't good at finding sponsors and mentors outside the company. And he said, and what that does, it expands your thinking. It expands your network. It expands how you view the world. It feeds your curiosity. So, and it's really easy not to do that, right? Because again, it takes intention, it takes time, but there are massive, massive payoffs to that, I think, in being a successful CMO and actually being a fulfilled human being. So those are two really specific things we can all control. And I couldn't agree with them more. And I mean, I've had a great career. Part of it is in a company. Part of it's being sort of a portfolio person. I like a portfolio approach to my life. I had the self-awareness to say it was time for me to move into a different gear and pursue my own passions at 100% of my time. And I think that has helped me take care of myself and add value, I think, in areas that I could not have done in the corporate world. So that's my pragmatic advice. I borrow from Antonio on that and fully credit him. Funny stories. I mean, we have a lot of funny stories if we've had long careers in business, especially in marketing. I mean, the one that I think I would share where there's a good lesson in it is I'll try to make this short, but I was sent to Eastern Europe in the early days to be a general manager over a couple of countries. And we were entering new categories all the time. So I had this brilliant idea. We had a superior product in this one personal care category that we would think big and sample every person in the country. Wow. And if we would sample every person, we would get dominant share and we'd have higher loyalty because the product was so great. Well, I did that. And we spent a lot of our money early in the fiscal year on that. And we didn't sell anything for like 3 months. We sampled and we didn't sell any. Well, do you ever look at a shipment report and see zero?
Sadly, I have. It's terrible.
Right. And what I did, this is a good lesson. It's funny now. It was not funny then. I missed my forecast. I sampled. My sample pack was like 4 months of consumption. Because they used so little of the product because they didn't have a lot of money. They were not used to using this category. And so if I had done a little bit of consumer research, I could have avoided that, but I didn't. I reapplied what worked in some other countries who had different habits. So know your consumer in your market, or you can have a story that is hard at the time. You know, what do they say? Comedy is tragedy that happened one time and becomes comedy. That was tragedy in my career at that point. It became a very funny story.
That's an awesome story, and I think a great way to end the show. Thank you, Jim, and thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential. Look for our other shows on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, which include What Your Agency Wants to Tell You But Won't, parts 1, 2, and 3. A top executive search person's perspective on marketing, sales, and communications, a content streamer's view of media, and B2B marketing, a report from the front lines. Hey, all you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Linton signing off for CMO Confidential.
Today's episode of CMO Confidential is brought to you by CMOcoaches.com. Are you a current or aspiring chief marketing officer looking to take your career to the next level? You should work with a CMO coach. CMO coaches are former CMOs who are nationally certified coaches. So whether you want to improve your leadership skills, develop your team, or drive better business results, we have the experience and expertise to help you succeed. To learn more, visit us at CMOcoaches.com.